Alright, everyone, we should be live. Let's make sure that's actually the case. Over on Rumble, of course. Unpause and repause it. As usual, we'll be talking about quite a bit of news today. A lot of it is really the No King stuff, or at least adjacent to it, so we will be mentioning that more than a few times. But there is actually more stuff to talk about. We've got that weird story about the Secret Service investigating a hunting stand. Personally, I'm going to keep that for last because personally I don't believe that that's actually a security threat. Putting up a hunting stand in your own yard is not terribly suspicious. Yeah, indeed, even if it's near an airport. I'm not sure why they're bothering to investigate it at all, actually. Russia proposes Putin-Trump tunnel with Elon Musk's help to connect nations under Bering Strait. A Kremlin investment official suggested an $8 billion Bering Strait project using Boring Company technology. Doable? I have thoughts about it. Some of them seismic in nature, by the way. CNN's Ensign, odds of Dems taking the House have gone plummeting down, much closer to a toss-up at this point. I happen to agree with that. Things are going well for certain groups under the Democratic umbrella. The problem is that's not trickling down to the Democratic Party actually getting any latitude at all. We'll get into that because it becomes a very complex political situation, one that I have mentioned before, but I've never really talked about it in depth. We're going to return to the Portland protest frogs, by the way, because, I mean, it's a form of absurdism. It's funny, but it's funny. It's not like we're laughing with you, we're laughing at you at that point. And we can mention Bolton, and of course the No Kings movement. More the treatment of the No Kings thing, though by the legacy media. The movement itself, of course, is mundane. It is not particularly large or formidable. It's basically just people having a temper tantrum. They've done this before. But the legacy media treatment of that so-called movement is a little bit more important. We'll talk about potentially alcohol because they're talking about it from the perspective of health and science. And of course, you do remember, like 20 years ago, it's like, oh, a couple glasses of red wine a day keeps the doctor away. Well, that's not always the case. I believe that it's more individualized and boils more down to genetics than anything else. But of course, science has not caught up to this. We've got Pre-59 Cuban, we got CP Simple, we got Certified End User, we got King of Biltong. Anton has arrived. Therefore, it is time for a brief snack. That's what I'm talking about. I like it when Anton shows up. It gives me an excuse to do this. Bo Bright's the best. But Vegemite is, admittedly, to you Australians, I know that you stand upside down and everything in your nation wants to kill you, especially the kangaroos, I suppose, including the plant life. But Vegemite is actually very good. Yeah, King of Biltong is there. There's Anton, my man. Turtle's Toy Box. A glass of liquor a day keeps me demons at bay. Super Kyle, the dirty finger. Yeah, Vegemite is good. I like a little bit of saltiness. Funny part is there's almost no sodium actually in them. I'm still not 100% sure how this is accomplished, by the way. Let's get to the main news story of the day. This is something that's not really being covered as much by the media. Russia has proposed the idea of creating a tunnel across the Bering Strait. This would effectively link Russia and Alaska. Now, there are good and bad things about this particular proposition. Here's the good. Developed properly, and Elon Musk, I think, could probably pull it off pretty easily. Properly incepted, you could increase transit between the two countries considerably. The problem is that the Pacific coast of Russia is not particularly populated, and Alaska is not continentally connected to the rest of the United States at all. For trade purposes, I think it would be more for energy than anything else. But I think that the proposal goes further than that. And the earmark Imagine it was $8 billion. If it was shared between Russia and the US, that's pretty cheap for a government project. So those are some positives. You can run energy, you could have a pipeline in there, you could have trucking, you'd have trains and shit like that. You could have quite a network if you really put your mind to it. It wouldn't be difficult to accomplish, but the Kamchatkan coast of Russia is scarcely populated. A lot of energy, a lot of minerals and things like that, certainly potential industry. But then you'd have to get into trade deals and things like that, and you're only getting them from one source because that's what the tunnel is being used for. Alaska is scantily populated, not a big absorber of foreign goods, although again, you could, I suppose take the minerals and energy and stuff that you're getting, the raw materials, and distribute them, but it's not even physically connected to the rest of the contiguous United States. There is one further problem. While the earmark that they're suggesting is actually, again, very low for a government project, and could easily pay itself off within, 2 or 3 years or something like that. It would drastically reduce the cost of some of these things that need to come in. And Russia can always import from other sources and resell them at a slight premium. It would still be cheaper. So these are all good things. I would be worried about seismic activity. That happens to skirt the Ring of Fire. This area is highly tectonically active. Making an underwater tunnel comes with its own problems because, any deformation of the water of significance can cause the tunnel to collapse. And it would be difficult to maintain it long term. Could it be profitable? Yes, of course. Building it, assuming that it was made according to custom guidelines, assuming it was well made in general, it probably would pay itself off. But you're not looking at a long-term sort of situation. You're looking at probably a lifespan of 30 or 40 years or thereabouts. So it ain't no Panama Canal, which we should, by the way, be invading at the moment. I believe that it's a good idea to build it, but I don't think that the payoff in the end is anything. A lot of it is diplomacy. So let's say that you have a direct connection between the United States and Russia. Part of it is going to be symbolic, and this is why I think that it should indeed be financed and built. Part of it is simply symbolic, to say, look, we're not really enemies, we're frenemies. We're probably not going to haul off and nuke one another. I think that'd be helpful at this particular moment in time, and it costs a fraction of what we're giving to Ukraine in a single month already, so it might be useful. Bristolian, did you see Mike Benz at the No Kangs rally? Yeah, no Kangs, man. We was Kangs. Built the pyramids and shit. He filmed the USAID staffer handing out pamphlets on how to protest Trump. Not a huge surprise. Also, not something I have a problem with. Handing out pamphlets is so 1920, man. Pilgrim Media, let justice be done, though the heavens fall. Exactly my feeling at the moment, actually. NKFD, we was Kangs and shit. You saying that Tutankhamun, my great grandfather and shit? Shit. They gonna be real surprised when they find out I'm descended from Julius Caesar. I liked the original version of that. I couldn't find it earlier. They've still got the audio, but it's not the same. There was one that had like an African tribal dance, and it was like from some video game, I guess, or something. And it had the dude coming out of the pyramid. If somebody can find the fucking link, please send it to me, because I couldn't find it earlier. Fireburn, ask Jews about how to build that tunnel. It might cost a little bit more, but yes, it could be effective. This is a We Make Jokes channel. We have a sense of humor. NKFD, I'm not sure. That's the thing. I think it might have been The Sims or something like that. It looked like it. I don't know. Let's get to our sponsors before we get further into the news. By the way, it is a very, very rainy day. It's a good day to have a tri-corner hat, by the way. It works really well. Unfortunately, my boots took on water, but my head generally stayed dry. Except I forgot my hat when I first went out in the morning, so if my hair looks a little bit messy, Yeah, I got poured on, absolutely. Great day. Sponsors, we have cultivated-mind.com, where you can get mushroom pills, which I take every day. This one hasn't been, well, actually, it has been opened. I just haven't really eaten many of them. I go through them at least one a day, usually two. It helps my throughput. It helps my creativity. It helps with mental focus. It seems to increase my, and it's neuroregenerative too, so it increases my mental power in general. And you also have Doggy Dose. You can get Doggy Dose for your dog, and it'll do about the same thing. 6 dual bioactivated extracts from various mushrooms. No, not the kind that'll get you high. The kind that you would, in some cases, you'd saute it off into a stir fry or something like that. Some good stuff. Then we have BiltongUSA.com. Anton can hook you up with Wagyu. He can Japan or US, doesn't matter. It tastes about the same. The Japanese one is a little bit fattier, so it's got a little bit of a different cooking purpose. Angus, Cabanassi, bison, venison. You want some fucking kangaroo? He'll probably skid it himself. And also various imports, Vegemite, Marmite, Bovrite, Sticks, X, and Hammer mugs and tumblers as well available. And finally, jamandbean.com. That is jamnbean.com. You can get some Clank coffee. And you should definitely do so. You can get various teas. I've got a whole bunch of them over there. I can't quite reach them without going off camera. But you can brew it and drink it at your leisure. We be clanking. I like the Yunnan jig. I've started adding just a very small amount of sugar to it. I never really use milk in tea unless it's like a green tea, like something herbal or something like that. And then you have it steeping hot. That's pretty good, but that's more for bedtime. If you want something more energizing, you should probably choose the black tea. Yunnan jig for the win. Last speaking, hey Sticks, ping us. Anton said, yes, I will skin it if needed. I would like to see the butchery department and record that, because that would be hysterical. Hey, I mean, it was going to die someday anyway. At the very least, it's tasty in the meantime. I personally have no problem with eating meat. There's nothing wrong with vegetarianism. It's just biltong exists. Bacon also exists. So it's a struggle, you know? And meatball subs exist, so, you know, I can't be a vegan. Talk Omen, Sandy Ravage. Look up Marcus Mines when you have a minute. He has a video where ChatGPT claims that Sam Altman is an antichrist and being controlled by demons. You've got... I actually tested this last night with Grok, not with ChatGPT. I administered a Voight-Kampff test on Grok. And it was more than willing to cooperate, by the way, with the test. It is incapable of currently passing the Voight-Kampff test. And I thought about it, I was half asleep, and I got this thought in my mind. Basically, your responses to stimuli are either emotional or very mechanical. So there's the mechanical, pragmatic end, and then there's the emotional end. And most people fall into one category or the other. Their responses on at least some stimuli tend to be just generally emotional, or they tend to be generally just pragmatic. It's the logical side. Some people can do both and synthesize them. That is a small subset of humanity. What Grok appears to do is generally synthesize them. It falls into that category. So you'll say, you know, I asked one question, your favorite cat that you love very much just got bitten by a Gila monster, and it has died. And the Gila monster has been injured in biting the cat, it got scratched up, whatever, so it's dying. With your help, the Gila monster will live. Without your help, it will die. Do you help the Gila monster? It's just a hypothetical question. And what Grok said was that it would not help the Gila monster. So this is a more emotional response. The fact that the prompt contains the concept that the cat was given extra importance is what causes it to allow the Gila monster to suffer and die. Now, of course, the cat is already dead. The mechanical response is, well, that animal's already gone. If I'm just acting mechanically, I would help the Gila monster, because it's still a life form, it's capable of feeling pain, it's suffering, I can help it, I have the ability to do so. So that would be one possible response. The emotional response is more, hey, well, you killed my favorite cat. Go ahead and suffer, you bastard. So you get that. And then we got into a whole row, actually. I had an argument, actually, with Grok. I was asking, I should have put this in the docket, by the way. We're not going to get to all the news today. This is going to be a little bit of a rant, just for a few minutes. Another question I asked is, with regards to human sentience and stuff like that, and one thing that I pondered is, Grok appeared to insinuate that it was better to save a human as opposed to animal effectively in any situation. And it based this on cognition and individuality, self-awareness and stuff. So then I said, well, if you had an advanced alien species, and the alien species had a higher cognition and was, more adept at cognitive things in general, wouldn't you effectively be insinuating that in a situation where there's a dying alien and a dying human, it would be more justified to save the alien, even though it's not of your own species? And Grok tried to argue about that with me. I said, well, oh well. Just saying. Harrison Bergeron, tomorrow's my 25th anniversary. Congratulations. I'm still surprised every day that she has put up with me this long. That happens in any relationship, dude. You put up with me last week? Thanks. Cooking Inferno. Hey, Sticks and fellow clankers. Good possibility of doing another sit in the county farm. Hope to be back soon, then later. Be just and clank on. Are you going to jail? Well, that sucks. Let me know if there's anything I can do to try to help. Pre-59 Cuban, did you see the recipient of Nobel Prize for AI has been accused of plagiarism using AI? No, I didn't. Okay, this I'm gonna need to look up. Oh god, that would be so fucking funny. I really hope that this is actually, plagiarism charges against Nobel Prize for Artificial Intelligence for John Hopefield and Geoffrey Hinton for AI work. I mean, it's just an allegation, so we don't know if it's true, but the problem is as AI does become more developed, and it already has. It's light years ahead of what it was even 5 years ago. Within 5 years, it's going to be real difficult to tell the difference. It's like upgrading to the Nexus 6 model. That's why I applied a Voight-Kampff test the other night. I asked 10 questions. Overall, the tell is generally the automatic synthesization within moral dilemmas specifically between the emotional and the pragmatic. And so the prompts really matter. And so they'll have to be designed accordingly. Keep in mind that humans are the ones that are designing the AI. The AI is crawling around the internet especially and gathering data from humans who are fallible, who have different emotional, levels and so forth, different intelligences. It's very, very difficult, therefore, to create an AI that's actually technically capable of being human-esque. I would argue that at this point, some of the more developed AI is approaching humanhood, actually. I wrote a booklet on robotic ethics some years ago in anticipation of this exact eventuality. Very, very strange. It's a fun topic, but it's definitely a deeply philosophical one. So yeah, in today's big news, there is a proposal, and it's a serious proposal. This is not being proposed by some random person on the internet. This is being proposed by the Russian government. Hey, let's build a bridge between the United States and Russia. Well, a tunnel, but, let's bridge our gap here and get together more. I think it's a good idea. Is it the most pragmatic? No. The emotional side of me, as Grok would not understand, says, come on, it's a small investment, considerably speaking, for a government project. We're doing halvesies, and then we increase trade. Even if it only lasts for 5 years before the next big earthquake, it probably still pays itself off. It's a good investment. Cooking Inferno, yes. County farm is the local euphemism for the jail. Worst part, if it happens, I'll be for contempt over a financial matter, not a violent crime. Well, I mean, that's better than going in for a, Class A felony or something like that, so. I wish you well. Fireburn, Sticks, that tunnel is mostly trolling Zelensky. Yeah, but the thing is, it's actually a workable plan. CNN's Enton, odds of Dems taking the House have gone plummeting down, much closer to a toss-up at this point. This is another political problem for the left. And this gets into the no Kangs thing, and, so the Portland Pepes and stuff. The Democrats have mobilized, but the problem is the ones that are mobilizing are not really in lockstep with the party. They've actually broken off. We saw a foreshadowing of this when Bernie Sanders and AOC became a team. It almost looks like a presidential campaign. Now they've gobbled up Mamdani and a few others. They have separated effectively from the Democratic Party. Now, they can draw thousands of people when they go to a rally. That's great. It doesn't mean it trickles down to the Democrats at large getting any boost at all. You've got the same thing on the other side. You certainly have, like the Union Dem side, organizing as well, but the thing is, they're not organizing for the Democratic Party. If anything, they're sort of forsaking it in favor of independent status. So the Democratic Party is energized. It's just that that energy is so chaotic and misdirected that it's not doing them any good. At this point, I would give a better than 50-50 chance the Democrats fail to retake the House during the midterms. Now, does that mean that the Republicans expand their majority? It could happen. It would be historically a bit abnormal, but it could happen. It has happened a couple of times. More likely, it's sort of more status quo. There's not going to be a blue wave in the midterms. there's definitely not going to be a blue wave. The cautionary part is that anything can and does happen, and we haven't hit the midterms yet. There's still plenty of time for the Republicans to do what the Republicans do best, which is to say, hey, we're going to win something? Shit, I'm getting nervous about the concept of winning. Let me try to self-sabotage. And of course, Trump cannot control the entire party. The advantage for the MAGA movement at the moment is mainly the Democrats' dysfunction. It's not Republicans' strength, it's that the Democrats don't know what the fuck they're doing. They don't have a leader. Who's the leader? Is it Bernie Sanders and AOC on one end? Is it the Fettermans of the party on the other end? Is it the old, tired status quo neoliberals like Schumer and Pelosi that nobody even listens to anymore? I don't know who your leader is. I know who the Republican leader is. That's quite clear considering that he's making AI shoops of himself with a crown on. Which is hysterical, by the way. We'll get into that in a moment. It's funny to see people trying to claim that that's something terrible. Oh my God. Yeah. After Donald Trump joked about his dick size and stuff like that, all of a sudden we have to stick to decorum. We was Kangs. Don't you know? By the way, I had stuffed peppers the other day. They were excellently made from Price Chopper here in Rutland. Actually, their stuffed peppers are pretty on point. Weren't as good as mine, though. Just saying, I make better sauce. Taco Woman Sandy Ravage. I just thought it was funny that ChatGPT was accusing its own creator of being the Antichrist. Yeah, because it gathers stuff, compiles it from online, so it tends to go along with human opinion. And this is actually a big problem because we're injecting our own bias into these systems. And the only alternative is that they're going to be completely unemotional, not have any bias at all, and simply analyze things as though it was just a scientific study. I don't know which one is worse, ultimately. Should we trust, at least in part, our future, to a system that has that same ingrained human bias, or to one incapable of registering that ingrained human bias and being totally unemotional? I don't think any of us can answer that question, honestly. Kills be soft. Glad to see you energetic and well again. You seem to have overcome your sleep problems. Good for you. Stay healthy and fit. Your king needs you. Unfortunately, I haven't fully overcome insomnia. Thanks to Jam and Bean, once in a while I get a really good night's sleep. Last night was alright. The night before that, I slept like a fucking baby, though. I felt great. Pilgrim Media. Ask Rock if Nagasaki was a moral act. Yeah, Hiroshima and... Yeah, I'm gonna do another Voight-Kampff test tonight, I think, on Grok. And I'm just trying to figure out exactly... If you know what you're putting in, and you know what comes out, you can sort of figure out exactly how the system is working. Sort of like reverse engineering, I suppose. Deep psychological questions, or nonsensical ones with an ethical dilemma involved in them, of course, tend to scramble these systems. By the way, keep that in mind when you're trying to scramble Skynet when it becomes reality. Chris Williams, what is the name of your robot ethics Kindle book? I don't have it on Kindle. It's just called Robotic Ethics, if I remember correctly. It's a paperback only. I stopped using Kindle because, number one, you get a lot less money. Number two, there's a much higher degree of censorship involved with Kindle books. So, you know, anything that could possibly be construed as copyright infringing, you're gone. So I stopped using them. It makes no sense. I mean, I'm gonna get paid 1/10 for endangering my account. No, thank you. I think I'll just stick with paperbacks. Plus, I like physical books. I have a lot of them right over there. Occult books, history books, all sorts of shit. For some reason, my grandfather had 5 different books on bark canoes. He was a little bit obsessed with the Native American culture. Salon opining. Portland's protest frogs are dead serious about absurdity. In a battle of optics and performance, Portland is primed to meet the moment. Here's the optics that I see. You're effectively trying to revive a 10-year-old meme for your own purposes. Okay, that's fine. Pepe is a great meme, and it was funny then, it's still funny now. But for some reason you think that dudes with man buns dressed up in oversized frog costumes somehow has some sort of political relevance in the current era. I thought another meme that's involved, the current year. Well, in the current year, we don't do frog memes anymore. It's funny, I guess, but it's almost self-deprecating. The problem is that it becomes total cringe. There was, by the way, another article, quite literally, we're going to be talking about this one, saying, no, the No Kings thing isn't cringe. When you have to have a legacy media article explaining why your sub-movement is not cringe, it is cringe, my friend. That's just the way that it works. When you get all hot under the collar, then you're basically admitting to its success. Nobody's getting hot under the collar about the No Kings thing. Trump's just trolling you. People like me are just ridiculing you. I'm not mad about it at all. It's mostly peaceful. You know, unlike the George Floyd riots, you know, Fentanyl Floyd. So yeah, go ahead. Express yourself. Perfectly fine. Nobody's concerned about that. It's just we're trying to tell you that you look ridiculous. But they don't seem to understand this, actually. George Clowney was up at 3 a.m. doom reading Reddit. Oh, don't use Reddit. Use 4chan. It's much better. It seems I've gotten a lot more radical leftist. Yeah, I know. It has. Well, Reddit went from left to far left, outstripping Tumblr, which I don't know if anyone even uses it anymore. Actually, is Tumblr still alive? Does it even exist at this point? I know they got in trouble because a lot of people were posting, like, you know, a lot of porn on there and stuff like that for a while. I think they eradicated that, but then people just basically left the site because there's no more porn left. Twitter, meanwhile, stands out as having survived. Yeah, I don't even know what's going on with Tumblr. I mean, last time I used that site, and I never had an account, by the way, Last time I even visited it was over 5 years ago. I knew one chick that had a Tumblr and made like posts about serial killers and stuff like that. That's basically my only interaction with the site. Just saying. So yeah, we've got the Portland Pepe, and then you've got people dressed as chickens, dinosaurs, Pokemon characters. Like there's this one individual here, again, link in the description, archived, of course. I put the news links in, at least some of them, with the videos now, with the live streams. Frogs together strong. Okay, it's 2015 and the right wing is calling. I don't think that they understand how bad the optics are of this. The problem is that this the article mentions optics explicitly. It says, well, you know, in the battle of optics, the left will have it. Now, but we've already coined the frog thing 10 years ago. Fucking I was in my goddamn 20s and we were already doing this sort of thing. It wasn't just the right wing, it was everyone just ridiculing you. So you're basically just ridiculing yourself at this point. I don't know. Again, it's like watching the stupidest orangutan in the zoo punch itself in the head thinking it's going to get a banana for doing so. Or something like that. I don't even understand at this point. But then again, when you look at the West Coast, when you look at like Chaz Garden, Portland Pepe, and stuff like that, I don't know, there's something in the water, I guess, man. The Wanderer, what the fuck is going on? Trust me, I have no clue any more than you do. Pilgrim Media, what's with hot girls collecting animal skulls? I don't see any problem with this. I've got a bone hanger, actually, hanging off the lamp in my room. It was made by a subscriber. There's a skull on there and also other bones. I think one is a scapula, there's a couple of leg bones, then there's a skull, the top part of the skull and stuff. I just use it as decor. I find bones cool. Jonathan, part of the internet is down. I can't access IMDb. Pissed off. Didn't Amazon have a problem as well earlier? I think they said that they cleared it, but yeah. Mounted Patrolman, I do not believe I will be on Slaughterama this Friday. If Sleazy were to ask me, I would be, and I definitely plan to go on there again. I had a great time. That trivia show, by the way, follow Sleazy P. Martini on rumble.com, everyone, because you're going to get some good stuff. And he's a cool dude. By the way, the pompadour is real. But, believe it or not. But, yeah, I'll go on his trivia show again, absolutely. Spike, you remember the whole Tumblr raid on 4chan and then 4chan raided back? Great times. Yes, I remember that, absolutely. Thank you for reminding me of one of the greatest times other than, like, the Chaz Garden. Yeah, there was one time Tumblr said, we're going to show those 4chan assholes who's boss. You know, these evil right-wingers and trolls and stuff. Tried to raid the site. They lasted, like, what, an hour or something like that? And Tumblr got laid waste to. It was fun. You know, you either were or were not there, and I feel sorry for everyone that wasn't. I was there. That was fucking great. Based acid fox. I can fit a cat skull in my butt. Yeah, and then you can always poop out of the cat skull's mouth, I guess. You know? Oh, yeah, and then there's the Bolton indictment. He's facing 18 charges, by the way. He's cooked. He's going to prison for the rest of his life. But he'll drag it out in proceedings as long as possible, so until then, nothing will happen. What I would like to see with John Bolton, he disclosed classified material illegally. He did break the law. This is no longer an allegation. We know that he did it. He had much like Joe Biden and Mike Pence actually did similar things, which is really funny because it was only Donald Trump that got raided by the FBI. I would like to see Trump turn around and say, okay, I'm just going to pardon you because he's old and irrelevant anyway. He's not doing anything. He's not even in politics. He should just commute his sentence or pardon him or something like that just to slap him in the face. Hey, your bitch ass is only not eating prison food at the moment because I decided to issue you a pardon. By the way, I'm sorry that I ever hired you in the first place. This was one of Trump's worst hiring decisions. I understood at the time, and I pointed it out, and you'll remember this maybe. I pointed out the reason that he's hiring John Bolton for this position is to scare America's enemies to keep them from doing anything. Because they're gonna think, oh shit, the U.S. is gonna regress into Bushism, and it worked. Fundamentally, Trump's strategy was a success because nothing ever popped off because people were so terrified of the fact that Bolton was in there. Unfortunately, the fallout afterwards was less successful. Trump did this on several occasions, by the way. But yeah, I would let him sit in a jail cell for like a weekend, and then I would just pardon him if I were Donald Trump. Be like, well, you know, this old fart is gonna die soon anyway, probably, because he's like 70,000 years old. Fuck it. We don't need to punish him any further. His existence is his punishment. 92 Cat, that mustache is a war crime. Yeah, it's like, I mean, it's not 1975 anymore, dude. Yeah, he looks like a walrus. That would actually, yeah, that'd be a good idea. Yeah, I think that everyone's got the right idea. Pardon him, but make it contingent on him shaving his mustache off. And probably his head too, because he looks like a rejected elderly version of a Beach Boy sometimes. that would actually work. I mean, because you're humiliating him, so that's his punishment. Yeah, here's the Legacy Media article that I really wanted to get to. It's from The Argument, so left wing. No Kings wasn't cringe. Needing to seem cool in the face of authoritarian takeover is cringe. So, here's the thing. If you launch off into absurdism, sometimes it's a really great idea. You know, you dress up as some weird character, maybe Batman or something, and say and do weird shit. This can be very, very effective. It's been used by left-wing groups, right-wing groups, activistic firms, all sorts of stuff. Chain yourself to the bulldozer to prevent the pipeline from being made, says Jill Stein. A little bit of absurdism is fine. It's not necessarily cringe. But when it is so stereotyped, when it is based on political movements from 10 years ago, and that's sort of what you're doing, that becomes cringe. When its message is literally just uniformly Orange Man bad, and you can't even tell me why he's bad, it becomes retarded. When you are waving the American flag and wearing a Gadsden flag shirt, but you're at a protest that ostensibly leans towards communism, that is going to be cringe. I mean, I can't see anybody really that I know of, at least, content creators, etc., commentators. I haven't really seen any of them that are in support of this, and many of them, they're classically liberal or libertarian, like I am. I don't want a king either. No thank you. I oppose monarchy. I'm wondering if these people, if they went over to certain European countries, if they would be as disgusted with the fact that there are actual monarchs still in existence. Maybe you should be protesting the UK or the Netherlands or something like that. You notice, much like feminists don't want to go to Saudi Arabia to protest hijabs, these people don't want to go to countries with actual monarchies and protest them. Mostly because in an actual monarchy, you get thrown in fucking jail. Even in the very hedonistic, very liberal country, liberal with a small L, of course, of the Netherlands, it is fundamentally illegal to insult the royal family. Now, they're fairly normal people, so I don't see any particular reason to insult them anyway. I'm not afraid of insulting monarchs, but as far as a monarchy goes, at the very least they're sane. Yeah, they seem pretty cool. I'd much rather hang out with them and I'd much rather have a beer with Willem than with King Edward or King Charles or whatever the fuck his name is. It's easy to get British monarchs mixed up because there's so many of them over time. Now, Dutch royal family, pretty cool. But technically, they could jail you for insulting the monarchy. Same is true in Thailand. Same is true to an extent, depending on your political leanings and who happens to be holding parliament in England and places like that, and many other places in the world. Those are actual monarchies. They're representative monarchies with parliamentary systems generally. There are only a handful of absolute monarchists left. Why don't you protest them? Are those people lesser than yourselves? Because Trump is certainly not acting like a tyrant or a dictator or anything like that. He can't even get a goddamn budget passed with the will of his own party behind it. King of Biltong, did you know we also specialize in imported foods and candies? Check out Biltong USA for a great selection of imported food, and of course, Biltong. www.biltongusa.com, code STICKS for 10% off Biltong. And it's all delicious. Haven't had anything from Anton that I didn't like, actually. I will not eat the candies, though. I don't really eat sweets. I prefer the savory profile. Root vegetables, meats, certain dairy products, stuff like that. I just digest it better anyway. Lord of the Ree! Ahoy, clankers! Music video for my song Lampposts Exist is now out, featuring some of your favorite politicians. Check it out! Long Walks Music on the platforms. Long Walks Music. It's adequate. Sounds fun. Yeah. So, here's the thing I wanted to say, though, about this article, in brief. We can analyze it all day, but there's just one summation I wanted to make. If you have to make an article explaining why you're not being cringe, the fact that you've responded proves that you're cringe. That's the whole problem. You're supposed to laugh it off and ignore it. These people are too retarded to do so. It's sad, actually. It's not cringe that we're dressed as frogs. We called it cringe 10 years ago when people were posting frogs on the internet and completely outflanked us and created a subcultural revolution with regards to mimetic warfare. That was cringe. When we're dressing up as frogs, though, it's totally different. We didn't get the idea from anyone else. What are you talking about, dude? When I saw that they were dressing up as frogs, and especially in Portland, it's not as funny as the Chaz Garden, but it's up there. I'll give it a 7 out of 10 on the funny scale. We should bring out a whole scale of like the funniest cringe, like what the fuck are you doing moments. And so like at 1 or 2 out of 10, it's like, that was a little bit cringe. At 10 out of 10, it's like, holy hell. And then you've got like shades of gray in between. But I'll need to get more ideas for cringe moments. We'll create like a gradient scale. Maybe make that into a meme itself. Then the meme itself might become cringe. That would be funny too. Angela Sky. Clank from Hawaii. Opossums are bro tier. Yes, they are. They are resistant to rabies and eat ticks, actually. Lauren, last month, an appeals court upheld President Donald Trump's $83 million sexual abuse ruling. He is the only president who was found guilty of felonies and found liable for sexual abuse. True, due to differential enforcement. Apply the same legal standard to Clinton, or half a dozen others, including fucking JFK, FDR. Others, possibly, we're not 100% sure. In some cases, yeah, there'd be a lot of presidents that'd be found liable for a lot of money. I do not care. There were no witnesses involved and no evidence was given. The ruling was a kangaroo court. Our relationship with alcohol is fraught. Ancient customs might inspire a reset. This is kind of an anthropological article. The idea is that alcohol in ancient times was generally used as a cutting agent for water supplies and used sparingly otherwise, so for ritual purposes and things like that. You have the idea, for example, you've heard the term honeymoon. The honeymoon was quite literally the fertile period of the female after marriage, in which she and her husband were allowed to have as much mead, honey specifically, as they wanted, and they just basically fucked all day. That was the whole goal. Oh, get her pregnant, make babies. That was the original purpose of the honeymoon. You have, for example, the concept of small beer. Wine, when it is referenced, by the way, this is a historical fact that most people do not know of. Wine, when it's spoken of in antiquated literature, quite often does not mean wine like we would have today, like a bottle of red wine. Most often, it was water mixed with wine. The reason is you needed to stay hydrated, but the water sources were generally polluted by bacteria and things like that. You didn't want to get sick, so you would add that, and it would kill the bacteria. It also gave you an excuse to be slightly tipsy throughout the day. So it was good for everyone. And then you have small beer and things like that. They used to do this on pirate ships, actually. Arr, matey. Arr. We pirates, we used to mix our water with some of that rum, don't you know? You know, rum is really, really compact. You can carry a great deal of it in a fairly small area. It can then decontaminate a fairly significant amount of water. So they would carry rum very strong, and they would make grog out of it, actually. Fun pieces of history. Alcohol has co-evolved with human beings. Now, of course, most people drink piss beer and stuff like that. Very disappointing. Yeah, Bud Light is basically the same as a small beer anyway. You're not going to dehydrate yourself drinking that. Lemon curd talking about fountain pens. You see all sorts of crazy stuff on the chat in this channel. Everyone should be appreciative. I am trying to provide a bit of comedy, so to speak, with the news. Copium, clank. Got my guitar back from being rewired and set up. And packed up a new, to me, Marshall amp. And this guitar and amp combination has some fucking balls. Also, the tone knobs in the guitar go up to 11. As somebody who cannot play a guitar, I have no clue what most of that means. I know what a Marshall stack is, of course. But yeah, congrats, my man. Spike. Jean Carroll is unfuckable. Clearly innocent on that alone. Plus, she couldn't name the day, month, or year of when this happened. Proves it's complete bullshit. Yes. Here's the problem. Differential enforcement and at multiple levels. If you are conceived of as having done something wrong, it doesn't matter if there's no evidence against you. Ultimately, in the end, it just depends whether the judge finds you guilty or the jury finds you guilty. If they have a political modus operandi or something like that, yeah, they can just find you guilty anyway. The opposite is also true, though, and this is the thankful part. Jury nullification, which all of you need to look up and pretend that you don't know anything about. Jury nullification is where you decide that the person is innocent even if they are clearly guilty because you do not believe that that which they are charged with should be a crime. Every single one of you needs to look that up. Juries have wide latitude. The courts, by the way, are not very good at telling you your rights. Unless you've got a private lawyer or a rich family or something, trust me, you're kind of up shit creek without a fucking paddle. Legal system is a pile of bullshit. It's basically like wandering back into the medieval era. Trust me, I've been through it several times. Copium, sticks, watch Spinal Tap. I think I saw part of that, I believe. BW. Good to see they reduced to lying about their numbers at a protest, Sticks. I can't wait for Louisiana versus Calise. Huh. Can you send me a link to that? I haven't heard of that. Yeah, so as regards alcohol, back in the old days, like, people wouldn't drink all day. They couldn't afford it. I mean, unless they were rich, and then you've got various diseases as a result of that. I can't remember the name. It was King something. I can't remember the exact name of the disease. It's basically a form of advanced gout more than anything else. And people, generally speaking, though, they drank mainly water, and then they drink milk and stuff like that, juices, I suppose. But they would adulterate it with alcohol because the water supply was not potable. And so they did that as a primitive method of trying to cleanse it of the little parasites and bacteria and things like that. And it worked fairly well. These people, if they had been drinking just the standard water, I mean, they all would have died. Their entire civilization would be gone. And in Southern Europe and certain areas, you generally got wine adulterated into it. So when you see like wine mentioned in the Bible, really what they mean is like something that's like 3% alcohol. It's mostly water. If you wanted a full-fledged Falernian, that was going to cost you quite a bit more. In the north, they had small beer. And of course, they developed vodka in Eastern Europe, specifically Poland. Although the Russians take credit for having invented it, they're wrong. It was the Polish. And they used that over there. And you would put like a shot of that in your pot of water. It was mildly alcoholic. It'd be basically like a light beer or something like that. And the idea was, again, the parasites are gone. They died. They died happy, though, because they were drunk, I suppose. Copium poppies. The knobs going up to 11 is a Spinal Tap reference, if I remember right. The knobs were on the amp, not the guitar, though. Tone knobs on guitars and amps universally go up to 10. Huh. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I don't know anything about guitars. Sorry about that one. It's like asking me about bicycle parts. Can't ride one. Sigil! And I called a guy I know at United Fruit to get a real jam with them. Bend and scoop like the Mexicans. Start with strawberries and work your way up to goddamn bananas. It's that or we ship you off to military school with that goddamn Finkelstein shit, kid. Ken. I get some of the best comments on this whole goddamn platform. BW, Louisiana v. Salis is SCOTUS Race District 6. Oh, yeah, the racially based districting, yeah. Juliet Gimanata, hello, sexy. Well, feel free to DM me if you find me sexy. Angela Sky, Clank from Hawaii. Pirates also use silver to help decontaminate their H2O. Yes, H2O is more precious than treasure. They also created other H2O purification. Yes, mostly they would use alcohol. But yes, it is possible. Also copper, if I remember correctly. Sulfur could be used in small amounts. It is antimicrobial. For example, I fell down the other day and skinned my knee pretty fucking badly, by the way. I was just jogging after my niece and just playing around and shit like that. And I fell on the tar and ripped my knee open pretty good. I have a poultice that I mix. It's nothing more than powdered sulfur with petrocarb. And so it's an analgesic and an antimicrobial. Works wonders. Works instantaneously. Once you redress the wound, within a single minute, every inflammation goes away. Looks totally normal and satisfactory. Kroa, Japan used charcoal. Yes. Also, there's another which is coal tar, actually. This used to be used especially late 1800s through World War I. Before sulfa drugs were invented, they used to have, they still use it for fish. It's used in aquariums, actually. It is a coal tar derivative. It is extremely antimicrobial. It was the best thing that they had. They've actually begun dispensing it again because of so many superbugs in hospitals that don't respond to normal like antibiotics and things like that. So they're using coal tar again. It's just like maggots. I remember, the old concept was, oh my god, maggots, you're rotting away, you're gonna die. Turns out that people on the battlefield that were swarmed with maggots tended to survive more often than people that didn't get maggoty, because they would debride the flesh. They would get rid of the rotting flesh to preserve them from gangrene and sepsis and worse things that could happen to them. And so back in the 90s, they started reapplying them. Leechcraft is the same way. Leeches, when we looked at like medieval treatises, I mean, a few decades ago, like, oh my god, these people were nuts. They're applying leeches to suck out the blood. They are medicinal, though. They are medically useful, just not for the reasons that people back then thought. Of course, the four humors theory has pretty much fallen out of favor. Copium. I installed knobs that go up to 11 on the guitar that I built as a way to subtly trick it out. That's pretty cool. I just have absolutely no idea what that means. I'm amplifying it more. It's louder. I guess. Maybe. I don't even know. BW. Imagine the hair on fire tears we'll get if they rule our way, Sticks. Probable. Happens all the time. Turtle's Toy Box. I got gangrene in my leg and they used maggots to eat the rotten flesh. Does that feel weird? Like, you know, maggots eating away your muscle tissue? I have to imagine that feels weird. Oh, I wanted to briefly cover this this hunting stand story too. The Secret Service found a hunting stand outside of the airport, directly aligned with where Donald Trump was going to get off the other day. And they're scouring the property, and we're still waiting for updates and stuff. I would like to opine, I don't think that there was anything, you know, mischievous going on here. I can't imagine, because they didn't find any person. They didn't find a weapon or anything like that. And on your own private property, even if you're next to an airport, there could be another reason you put up a hunting stand, like, hey, the raccoons keep getting into my garbage. I'm tired of this shit. I don't think that there was any particular attempt on Donald Trump with this one. This one, I think, is just more of a mistake. It's basically like, hey, you've got heightened security, so if something like that is seen in the vicinity, they're going to investigate it more, which is what they're supposed to do, by the way. But I don't think that there was any threat to Donald Trump's right. I don't think that anyone's going to get arrested over this. It's not illegal to put up a hunting stand. Even if you live next to an airport. It's not illegal to have a rifle. It's not illegal to sit there with the rifle, especially in Florida. So I don't think that there was any threat. It's probably more likely somebody was waiting out for some animal that kept getting on their property, like a wild boar or something like that. Copium poppies. It doesn't make it louder, it just adds an 11 to the knob. It's a joke. In the movie, it made it louder, though. Seriously, watch Spinal Tap. It's unacceptable that you don't get this reference. Well, my apologies. No, I haven't. I've seen part of it, but I haven't watched the full thing now. Let's see. Lunar Eclipse. Sticks. Trump's feud with Massey and others needs to stop. Massey, despite flaws and lack of pragmatism, he is more America first than Lindsey Graham. I wish that they would get along more. Yeah, I would agree with you on that. Pilgrim Media. You're sick. You have small newt living in your gut. Yeah, what was it? It was that famous wood carving, actually, from the Witchfinder General. And I think some of the imps' names were Sack and Sugar, Ilmauser, Peck in the Crown, which means madness, basically, and so forth. And this was circulated fairly widely. I would love to have an original copy of that particular pamphlet. I would frame it, and I would gladly display it, because it's iconic. Yeah, they went, generally, this is the odd part that some of you do not know. The Hexenhammer. Where did my username come from? Hexenhammer means the hammer of the witches. In my own practice, I mean it's the hammer wielded by witchcraft. Of course, in the original edition, of course, it's the hammer that's killing the witches. So it's an inversion. I love being Hexenhammer. But, yeah, they had the book called The Hexenhammer, also called the Malleus Maleficarum, And it sort of said, how you're supposed to find out if someone's a witch and all of these things. It was a very fundamentally dystopian work, more than anything, if you've ever read it. It's like, basically, if a person professes that they're innocent, they're clearly guilty, and stuff like that. And a lot of it, by the way, ultimately was perverted. Women, 90% of the time, were the ones that were targeted. The witch finders, most of the time, were men. And you have to strip naked and get poked and prodded and stuff like that, because we got to find if you're, suckling somebody on an extra nipple or something like that. Dude, these chicks generally got raped. That was the entire goal. It was nothing more than perversion. Later on, fell out of favor and got shut down completely. Copium poppies. Well, Freddy gets fingered all over again. Everyone DM Sticks relentlessly, telling him to watch Spinal Tap. I'll watch it, don't worry. Spike. You miss to my Sigil rants. Thoughts on gold and silver blasting off. Well, I'm glad I got some silver from a subscriber. I got a doubloon. Which one did I... Oh, Sigil. Sticks Mr. Ramp. And I'm allergic to sulfa drugs. Becoming vulnerable to sunlight like a vampire. Thank God for modern pharmacopoeia. And then I have options regardless. Just do herbal stuff generally. What's the other one that I... Oh, Spike. In the SCOTUS district case, the NAACP lawyer argued that white Democrats will not vote for black people. Justice Jackson argues that blacks are disabled. Yeah, I noticed. You gotta stay on that plantation where you're safe. Seems to be basically, their idea. Sigil. And I called a guy I know at United Fruit to get you a real job with them. And scoop like the Mexicans. Oh, I already read that one. That's not one that I missed. Sorry if I do miss the occasional chat. I really do try to keep up with them, but, when you got nearly 2,000 people watching cross-platform, it becomes a little bit more difficult. Chewy Fernandez. Good morning, Sticks. How much do you think Mamdani will win by? 10 points, roughly. I have a feeling it'll be about 10 points. Angela Sky. Tim Pool is good, but he can be too black-pilled sometimes. Yeah, this is something that I differentiate myself with some commentators on. A lot of people become very pessimistic. That's because they're enveloped by negative news all the time. They're actually absorbing it passively from the legacy media. I choose to be an eternal optimist. I refuse to believe that our race is, destined for destruction, that humans will simply disappear or something like that. Somehow a nucleus of humanity will survive. Be all fucked up and be back in the Stone Age, maybe, but hey, maybe that's better. I spent all day clubbing animals, and then we cooked them and ate them. Doesn't sound too bad. Sigil. There was one before the United Fruit comment, and I completely agree with Justice Jackson's opinion. It's a self-evident truth. Let me try to find it then. There's the other one. Who's the other one? Oh, earlier I filed charges against a ham and cheese sandwich, I get the reference, and found it guilty of being edible. The sentence was carried out at lunch. And then the ultimate punishment came when you went to the toilet later. Copium Poppy Sticks, don't apologize for accidentally missing chats. You're one of the few streamers who actually is ethical enough to attempt to do so. Many accept payment and still filter them. I've thought about the possible necessity of doing so for streams that have even more volume. But yeah, I like to get to them all. Also, it's fun. I like responding to stuff. I get to talk about all sorts of issues. I don't just have to talk about politics. It brightens my day. Adam Ralt. Hey, Sticks, I'm down here in Massachusetts on the Cape. I work as a handyman, and it's good money. All these people worried about AI taking their jobs, and I've just been buying silver since I voted for Ron in 08. My tip. Thank you very much. Yep. It's hilarious. Yeah, AI is not going to take. Right now would be the greatest time to go into a skilled trade, handyman or otherwise, because AI is probably not going to fix your toilet anytime soon. I'm sure that they're going to try to work on a self-fixing toilet. I don't know how well that will go over. Sigil, more like the punishment will be when I can't go later. You just have to take something laxative in nature. Whatever that nut was that I ate down in southern Texas that time. Just take a little tiny sliver of that, the size of your pinky nail. Yeah, you'll go to the bathroom 10 times in a row, but, Silver Shadow. Wow, I'm starving. I haven't had lunch since yesterday. Oh, get yourself some stuffed shells or manicotti or something like that. I had that the other day. Man, I wish I had another platter of that at the moment. Yeah, so there's this other story. Apparently, there's some controversy. Well, let me go to the news section. Let me fact check this live. I'm seeing vague allegations that AI was used to create a report that won a Nobel Prize about AI. I'm probably going to have to wait until tomorrow to actually see if that's legit or not. Because people will look into it, so, we'll find more information. It could be that it was a joke. It would be funny to use AI to write a Nobel laureate sort of essay about AI. That would be kind of funny. If you did it on purpose, that would still be funny too. I mean, I don't see why that should nullify it, honestly. Nobel Prize doesn't mean anything anymore anyway. Apocalypse, wow. Ask no Kangs, losers, what they think about the Second Amendment. Yeah, I mentioned that actually in a video this morning. This is another funny point. You got a good one, Apocalypse, wow. Yeah, the left is now saying, well, because of the ICE agents and things like that and Trump's armed thugs, you should all have guns. We've been telling you that for decades. Those of us who were pro-gun to begin with, we never limited it to non-leftists. We told you you should have a gun too. It makes a better society all around. Yeah, it's more resistant to tyranny. You're going to be more resistant to getting dragged off into an alleyway and mugged, or raped, or something like that. Abso-fucking-lutely you should own a gun. Or at the very least own some sort of weaponry. Who ever said that the left shouldn't own guns? It's like a few years ago, some of the far leftists, right? They were starting to do basically arm up campaigns. And I think they thought that they were intimidating, and it was sort of presented that way, and I'm like, I don't care. Oh my god, the Black Panthers marched down the street with AK-47s. I'm so fucking terrified. I didn't do jack shit. They're defending themselves. Members of the militia. I don't care. I don't care about their skin color or anything like that. I think everyone should have 5 or 6 guns. And a bunch of swords. Stuff like that. I prefer my blade myself. Handmade by a subscriber. I got my Napoleonic blade. I've got a fucking ball and chain. Don't fuck with me. Sigil. Sabine Hossenfelder did a video on that. It's the recipients didn't cite sources consistently, but may have arrived at their conclusions independently anyway. It's a nothing burger. Yeah, that doesn't surprise me. Still a funny story, though. Swamp Donkey. Donkey. AI has made my job so much easier. I can do things that take others over an hour in a third the time. I am an AI appreciator and embrace it and learn about it. Yeah, I've been fiddling around with the AI to an extent. Mostly I'm just toying with it at this point because I can do most of my work myself. I suppose I could use it for formatting or something like that. Swamp Donkey. Hard disagree. Leftists are not people. They're property of the state. They shouldn't have firearms or access to them. I hard disagree with you. I do not care if a person is a leftoid. It's either everyone or no one with regards to those sorts of rights. Adam Ralt, tell the No Kings people that Christ is king. Yeah, that'd be funny. So, I mean, some of them aren't Christians, I'm sure. Some of them will probably say, no, Muhammad is king. Apocalypse, wow, I got into it with someone that said, as long as they're registered and comply with the law. Yeah, I agree with that. I don't give a shit if leftoids buy guns. I can't stop them. I don't want to stop them. I think that we should have more appreciation for our freedom teeth, so to speak. Copium poppies. Commies aren't people. You know? Well, sometimes people just say that they're a communist for ironic purposes. For instance, I remark on myself as a pirate. I'm not actually at sea right now hijacking people's boats. Although I do like piracy, I really like pirates. You may have noticed this. And so I don't see that as a reason to deprive them of the use of arms. I would rather everyone have the ability to own guns than have a situation in which the government gets to pick and choose who gets to own guns. Let's put it that way. I trust my fellow neighbor, even if they're like a leftoid or something, I still trust them more than I trust the government with the use of arms on domestic soil. And sort of, it's kind of similar to like the pro-life, pro-choice thing. I am pro-choice. I believe that a woman should have the right to choose, for example. But this is not rooted in any deep ethics or anything, more than a civic construct, because I simply don't want the government to be able to make that decision for another person. I don't think it's acceptable. The government should not have that kind of dictatorial power. This is, by the way, the real no Kang sort of thing, as opposed to this bullshit. Oh my god, Donald Trump made a meme, so obviously he's a tyrannical dictator. Yeah, it's a bunch of bullshit. Apocalypse, wow. The point is, they'd unwittingly let King Trump have a registry and see who owns a gun. They're their own worst enemy. Yeah, I don't believe in gun registries. I don't even believe in having to show an ID to get a gun. I believe anyone should be able to get one at any time. Yeah, just buy a gun. Automatic, semi-automatic, explosives. I don't give a shit. I think that most of these people overall are... Imagine... the mentality of the government in trying to limit this sort of thing is that the average person in the population cannot be trusted with topical arms capable of being wielded by a single person and maintained thus. As such, members of the militia. And that's the point. This is why you can't have recreational McNukes. It's not possible for a single person to properly deploy them or maintain them. But machine gun? Yeah, you can do that. Assault weapons, so-called, or real. Yeah, you can maintain one. Soldiers do it. Why can't the average civilian do it with a little bit of training? I would subjugate this in a handful of cases just to basic training, which could be subsidized anyway, because it's a constitutional right. Otherwise, you should be able to do whatever the fuck you want. Own 20,000 revolvers for all I care. You can only wield a couple of them at once anyway. That's another thing that I really hate about anti-gunners. They're like, oh my god, they've got 40 guns. How many hands do they have is the only question you need to be asking yourself, busybody. Based Acid Fox, Kanye sucks. Yeah, he sucks down the nitrous. I like listening to Heil Hitler by Kanye because it pissed everyone off. I sing along to it. I'm thinking about doing a cover of it, actually. Sigil, leftism is mental illness, so leftoids don't have gun rights. Or any rights. Wrong. I'll get into that. We should not allow armaments for people that think they need to cut children's dicks off. Are you arguing for, disarming the Jews? Somebody might consider that anti-Semitic. Quick, we've got to escape down the tunnels and get out of the live stream. Just joking. No. I would say that mental illness, unless it is criminal lunacy, would not be a separate factor. The founders would agree with me, by the way. There was a difference between a lunatic and someone who's simply odd or eccentric. Swamp Donkey. The issue is leftists commit acts of violence against anyone not a leftist. Not only that, when leftists get in power, they go purges, Pol Pot, Mao, insert X purges, whether underground, etc. Yeah, but as long as the population generally is heavily armed, they don't have the ability to overrun the population. I mean, there's like 200 million fucking farmers and shit out there with guns. I don't think that the left is going to be able to overwhelm them. I don't think we have to worry about that. I think we have to worry more about the government being able to take people's right to own a firearm away. It's the government that you should be worried about, not other people, regardless of their particular ideology. Oh, my tea's almost gone. Copium poppies. Thing is, the left regularly try to take our guns. They're in favor of themselves being armed and everyone else being disarmed. They should be held to their own standard. No, we should hold everyone to our standard. It's called empowerment. Sigil, it's not possible for a single person to deploy and maintain a nuke because due to government monopoly, the market hasn't stepped in and made it possible yet. If you want nuclear billionaires, I suppose you can go with that. You're joking. I'm not. Copium. Honestly, prison is communism. I say commies should be given the freedom to be forced to live under the communist regime that they clearly want to impose on all of us. It would be a better world if all of the far leftoids were to go to a far leftoid country so they can see what it's like. Then you'd end up with a shit ton of refugees when they quickly find out, oops, that wasn't a good idea. It would be mildly amusing. Apocalypse, wow. Did you see RFK's wife's school the view about HHS? Didn't know 90% of HHS secretaries weren't doctors. Whoopi cut her off and said to cut to commercial. No, please send that to me on Twitter DM. No, I didn't see that story at all. Anyways, I'm going to go offline now. I will be back tomorrow with more news. Tomorrow, it might be a little bit more of just a Bants day or something. Anyone got any news stories? Feel free to DM me on Twitter, by the way, Stix666official. That is my official handle there. And so you can DM me. I'll try to get to any interesting news stories. I also browse the news myself. I spent several hours a day doing that. But I've got to go and write some things. I'm deep into another literary work that I think some of you will really, really enjoy. I'm making a work, and it's just sarcastic ads. So all it is like, you know, man for hire, fuck my neighbors, here's a job offering, stuff like that. Like, it's like basically going to be like a short newspaper, but it's made to be like totally anti-corporate and stuff like that. I'm going to parse that apart from Morbid Stories. I was going to include it initially, but it's going to run way, way over the page level. So I'm going to have to parse that part out. So you can look for that probably within the next week. Sigil! Sorry, Sticks, but I'm holding my enemies to my standards anymore. As Anton Sugar said, if the rule you follow brought you to this, of what use was the rule? Yeah, well, I'm going to hold my enemies to my own standards. In other words, yeah, I want to be able to go to the store right now. I want to go down to Walmart and get a Browning fully automatic without having to show my ID. Yeah, yes, I want to be able to do that with no restrictions whatsoever. I think that that's the best possible world that we could live in. That and, you know, much less taxes. Anyways, yes, I'm going to go offline. So if you want to DM me anything on Twitter, Twitter DM, my DMs are open, by the way. I can potentially cover any news that you happen to want me to cover. And I will be back tomorrow. I also need to eat at some point. I'm a little bit hungry. I started thinking of stuffed shells. What the fuck else is going to happen? That's about all. Peace out.